Welcome to our solo episode where we highlight our previous guest, Charles Fernandez. What a gift. What a gift we got. We started off the year talking to Charles Fernandez, an Olympic athlete, a modern pentathlete. Wow. The theme of our conversation was all about transitions. Transitions, it's a change or a shift from one state, subject, place to another. We're all going through transitions, aren't we? The transitions of this year, January is a transition. Every week is a transition. Every month is a transition. Day to day is our transitions. We all have transitions. And what Charles highlighted was not all transitions are easy. There are some transitions that just happen to us, right? But let's dive in a little bit. Here are some quotes. As we realize, transitions could be both positive and negative. Here are some of the quotes and some of the things we learned from Charles. Think about what transitions are you going through right now, as you're driving or walking your dog or working out or whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast. What transitions are you going through? Some of the quotes that came through, he talked about the fundamentals of transitions, really our identity and your mindset. Your identity, so many times, if you've thought about a transition you've gone through, whether it happened to you or you chose the transition, what identity are you bringing into this next transition? What mindset do you have? He talked about calming your mind a lot. He said, in his profession as an Olympic athlete, he had to calm his mind. It wasn't always about working more, working harder. It was about calming his mind and really thinking through the process. That was some great tips. Here's his quotes. To be present is to be powerful. Can you believe that? To be present is to be powerful. You think about meetings you've been in, you think about, talking to your kids, think about, talking to your coworkers. When you're present, when you're engaged, when you're locked in, when you are where your feet are, you are powerful. I want you to be powerful this year. I know you want to be powerful, but to be present is to be powerful. That was a great quote. He talked a lot about, goals, dreams, and God-given gifts are amazing, but really falling in love with the practice is what it is all about. Falling in love with the daily habits is what it's all about. He talked about its true joy. You set goals, you wish for outcomes, but true joy comes in the daily habits. Are you in love with your habits? I mean, I think that right there is the straw that's going to stir the drink for you this year. Is what are the habits that you have every single day? Do you like them? Do you not like them? A lot of times we find our identity in these habits. But he talked about true joy comes from these habits. This next one grabbed me. It says, only the disciplined ones in life are free. Let me say that again. Only the disciplined ones in life are really, truly free. If you feel like there's some bondage in your life, there needs to be some discipline. I'll be the first to admit, there's what I believe. There's 5 circles in life. There's your faith, there's your family and your relationships, your business or your career. There's your finances, and then there's your personal life, which is both mind and body. Mental health, physical health. I'm disciplined in a lot of these areas. If you think about it, you're probably disciplined in some of these areas too. But it's so difficult to be disciplined in each one of these areas at the same time. Those are the seasons that we go through. But he says only the disciplined ones in life are really, truly free. That would grip me. And he talked about in transitions, you cannot run away from feelings or run away from pain. You have to embrace the season that you're in. He talked about, once he retired as an Olympic athlete, he's going through a transition. He went through a transition, and it was very hard. The 2 years he's been transitioning has been very difficult, and that's why he's so. Well, he wants to make an impact. He is so locked in and helping other people with these transitions because he knows the pain and some of the challenges that come with that. I just wrote down some notes. So here's some of the transitions that people go through. A new job or career, right? And what about the next level of your job and career? Sometimes a job is taken away from you. That's a transition. Sometimes you get a promotion. That's a transition. I think to me, transitions have a lot to do with the year, right? The December to January when you flip the calendar. But I think a lot of it has to do with our careers. I want to grow my business. Well, cool. Well, there's a transition that needs to happen. You cannot stay at the same level and have a bigger goal. You cannot keep the same habits and have a bigger goal. Your habits need to change. So another one that I came to mind is, a marriage or divorce. Those are transitions. When my wife and I were newlyweds, that was definitely a transition. Where do we go for Christmas or Thanksgiving? When the holidays come around, whose family we're going to spend time with? That's a transition. We had to figure that out. Divorce. There's divorce in our family. There's probably divorce in your family. To some degree. That's a transition. And how do you handle that? You can either have a transition like that. It can either define you or it will refine you, and you get to choose. That's the cool part. You get to choose. No matter what happens to you, you get to choose. Is it going to define me? Is it going to define who I am? Or will this refine me? Will this make me better? Is the suffering I'm going through in vain, or am I going to use this to grow? I think one of the most influential transitions that we've had, as a married couple, was at our church. We had leaders that were probably 1 to 2 phases of life ahead of us, and they really helped us with that transition. So my encouragement to everybody is when you're going through a transition, because we all are, right? Like the transition you're going through right now, is get help. The thesis of this podcast is relationships win. We had help. Lindsay and I had help. When we were first married, we had a young married couples class. We were all doing life together, trying to figure things out. Should we buy a house? Should we rent an apartment? Should we have a baby? Should we get a dog? Should we, go to your house, your family's house for the holidays, or my family's house? Like, these are all transitions. But we had somebody with us who was a couple phases of life ahead of us, and it was very impactful. Another transition from high school to college. This is important in my life right now. I got a daughter that committed to play golf in college, and we're going through this transition. She's not ready to go to college yet, but we're preparing her. There's preparation that needs to happen, and that's a transition. I know her Frisbee team. A lot of the athletes are listening to this. A lot of high school athletes listen to this, and our goal is that you become a student of the game your entire life. But there's a transition that's getting ready to happen. College is an amazing time. If you choose to go to college, if you don't choose to go to college, then there's still a transition. But high school to college is a transition. I remember when I went from high school to college as a basketball player. The term bigger, faster, stronger. That's real. There's a reason they make the freshmen carry the bags, the duffel bags, and get it onto the bus. There's a transition. I went from being at the top of my game in high school to now I'm at the bottom of the next level. And I think if we think about life like that, that transition is necessary. Yeah, okay, great. You've been doing what you're doing for 5 years. Cool. You're at the top of your game. But when you get that promotion, guess what? You're no longer at the top. You're at the bottom, and you got to climb your way back up. These transitions are normal. Relocation. This is big. This is going to account for probably 30%, 20 to 30% of all transactions in the U.S. this year is going to be relocation. People moving across country. We see a lot of it where work remote is big. A lot of families are relocating to be closer to family. That's really a good chunk of our business that we do as a real estate company is relocation. But that's a transition. You got to find new friends. How many of you have had to find a new friend or get in a new circle, or your kids go to a new school? These are all transitions that we want to be great guides, really, for the people in our life. What about health transitions? This was a big one for me. Last year I had some health issues, and trying to fight that, and try to make good decisions and try to be healthy. No matter what my family history is, it doesn't matter. There's transitions. There's transitions when you're trying to be healthy. How many people do you know that's getting older this year? All of us, right? And you could have injury. Maybe you're a runner, and you have a stress fracture in your foot, and now you can't be a runner for 6 to 12 weeks or whatever it is you have to sit out. But I think the health transitions, even if you want to lose weight, there's transitions, and all these transitions come back to those habits. Falling in love with that joy, the joy of practice, the joy of daily habits is really how you're going to get through this. What about personal growth or discovery? Personal growth or discovery. People don't think about this, right? There's a lot of growth-minded people listen to this podcast, and I know some of you is going to identify with this. It's not an easy It is not an easy transition when you are growing faster than the people around you. Think about that. Have you ever experienced something? You've gone to a conference or a seminar, or you've heard something, or you read a book, and you're just growing at a different level, and the people around you may not be growing. Well, there's a transition. Your personal growth journey may be having a transition right now. Maybe you're a goal setter and your spouse isn't. Maybe you're a goal setter and your family's not. That's a transition. You're growing. What about financial transitions? Right? Financial transitions like buying a house, starting a savings account, saving for college, investing. There are financial transitions, as part of your identity. We go back to what Charles was talking about. A lot of these transitions affect your identity. They impact your identity. You have to choose to be the person who is a saver. I have to choose to be the person who invests in my future, whether I, invest in real estate or, for a rainy day, your emergency fund. You got to choose to be that person. Empty nesting. This is big. This is big. Big baby boomer population, retirees, empty nesting. This is a transition. Do you still love the person you're with? Do you still enjoy the time spent with that person now that the kids are out of the house? Empty nesting is a big transition. Political and societal changes. This is something that I didn't really, think of until I was jotting some notes down. Every time this is an election year, every time there's politicians running in office, there's changes and there's transitions. The reality is, you are the person who is going to impact your change the most. Not a politician, not a leader, not your boss, but you. It's in your hands. But still, there's some transitions. Every year there's an election. Every time there's an election, there's a transition. Loss and grief, coping with the loss of a loved one, navigating an emotional journey is a transition. So as we think about Charles and what he talked about, this hits deep. For me, it hits deep. This is a transition, right? It's January. It's a new year. But one of the things that our team really has invested in is what's called short cycle execution. And I believe that the more transitions you can have in your life, the more you get to hit reset, the more you get to reflect, the more you get to focus on what worked well, what you want to change, and what you want to get rid of. And the more transitions you put automatically in your life, I think the more goals you can hit, the more you can achieve, and you're going to be fulfilled. You're going to be fulfilled because your life's going to have purpose. It's going to have meaning. You're striving to hit something, and then the ripple effects that you're going to create around you is going to be rewarding. So I hope you have some goals. I hope you have some transitions in your life. What we do is every 90 days, we have new goals. So there's a transition for us every 90 days. We don't have annual goals. We do. We have visions and marks, but we don't have a that's not our focus. Our focus is every 90 days. And if I can encourage you to have more transitions in your life and be okay with those transitions, right? Change is inevitable. And that's really what a transition is. Last thing he said is, he said, successful people live with a sense of urgency. Successful people take action, but it becomes intentional action and thought out action. So live your life with urgency. Let's go. The shorter your time horizon, if you have an annual goal, there's not much urgency. If you have a quarter goal, there's not much urgency. But if you take that goal that was a quarter, I actually just did this before I jumped on this podcast. I have a goal for the quarter. And you know what I did? I scheduled a phone call and set up a meeting and had it this morning. And it looks like in the next week, we may be able to accomplish this goal. And it's something that I said, hey, let's just do this for the first quarter. But I had some urgency. I hope you have some urgency. And if I can help you win at the game of life, that's what I'm here to do. My life mission is to help others win. And that's what I want to do with this podcast. Thank you for listening. This is the Cliff Notes. Charles Fernandez, what a great guest. Olympic athlete, talked about transitions in his life and what he struggled through. You should go listen to it. Go listen to that full episode. But if you don't have time for it, here's the Cliff Notes. Do yourself a favor. If you believe relationships win, click the button, subscribe to this podcast. I'm going to bring you relationships that are going to help you win. That's a wrap.